I always say the growth hormone didn't affect it, but maybe it did in some way.
I think
But
so. Because
but
I
anyway,
took growth hormone before bed for like 2 years straight with Cialis, just to, give a little bit of stimulation at night when you get most of your erections, and I gained some size.
Hey guys, it's Hink here. So as you saw in that clip, we are going to be discussing actually the role of growth hormone when it comes to penile enlargement. Those are, three guys, Vigorous Steve, Leo and Longevity, RIP, and of course Derek, More Plates, More Dates, that were talking about this, and in my research I came across the clip. Today we're going to be discussing it. I discussed it on my live with BD and Perv. We're going to be talking about growth hormone, IGF-1, and basically final answer, does it actually make a difference in the context of PE? So today we're going to be talking about primarily IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. It's actually one of the peptides that's basically activated by growth factor, basically turns it on and stimulates the secretion of it. I think it's one of the more active components of growth hormone, so that's what I really wanted to focus more in depth on, but we are going to talk about growth hormone in general. The IGF-1, it's produced in the liver, and it's once stimulated by growth hormone. Together with growth hormone, it promotes growth and strengthening of bones and tissue and other parts of your body, even organs in some cases. So what got me interested in growth hormone? So I'll never forget when I was learning about acromegaly in medical school. So acromegaly is basically a disease. Andre the Giant, if you guys remember Andre the Giant, enormous dude, but basically your pituitary gland in your brain secretes too much growth hormone. You actually have an over secretion of growth hormone, essentially gigantism, literally gigantism. But I always wondered, this just goes back to my insecurity, but I wonder how hung these dudes were. If they're all that growth hormone, it's causing their hands to be massive, their heads to be massive, their bodies to be massive. Is there an according enlargement in their actual pee-pee? I never actually got that answer. I'm still searching for that answer. But let's look at what the literature says. When you are talking specifically about people with micropenises, so people that are growth hormone deficient or even have an IGF-1 abnormality like Laurent syndrome, yes, you can see here in this paper, in underdeveloped boys, growth hormone does actually cause enlargement of actual penile size. And here's an interesting paper here that actually showed that if you have higher IGF-1 levels as a child, it actually insinuates that you're going to go through puberty faster. Basically, as a younger kid, you're going to get taller and your gonads are going to develop faster. It doesn't mean they're going to develop bigger than normal, but it is associated with earlier onset puberty. What that means for this video, I'm not sure. I just thought it was interesting. There's something that's called Laurent syndrome. That's how I say it. I don't know how you actually pronounce it. It's when you are deficient in IGF-1. But if you actually supplement in IGF-1, you can actually correct, because if you are deficient in IGF-1, you will have a micropenis, guys. That's one of the things, amongst many things, that can lead to lack of penile development. Lack of testosterone and lack of growth hormone, or lack of IGF-1. Here's this paper. Once again, it shows that in patients with IGF-1 deficiency, you can correct that, and you can actually get them to essentially a more normal size with supplementing IGF-1. But guys, you have to understand this. There's more than just, it's not just well, if IGF-1 makes you grow bigger if you're deficient, then I could take it and I could grow bigger. No, it doesn't inherently work like that, guys. Here's a case study I thought was interesting, where there's actually a 2-year-old kid, and the dad was putting DHT cream on as basically testosterone replacement therapy. He would put it on and I guess forget to wash his hands, so his 2-year-old kid was exposed to DHT, and the kid started developing like crazy. He was 2 years old, but his growth went through the roof, and he actually started to develop man-sized genitals. But you have to understand, guys, there's been studies on this. It can actually stop your growth prematurely. Yes, he was a 2-year-old with a hog. I never thought I'd be making videos about 2-year-olds with hogs, but here I am. But that does not mean he would be bigger than average. He would likely be smaller than average because he would shut down his androgen receptors prematurely, guys. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about replacing deficiency. It's not 1-to-1 growth equals growth, but I do think it's important for context. I've already made a video about these rats where they actually induced micropenis and they supplemented with growth hormone and testosterone, guys. Really, really fascinating study. You really should watch that video. I learned a lot from it. If you have a micropenis, if you supplement individually with either testosterone or growth hormone individually, you are not going to get the same growth, as you can see in this chart here, as if you combine them together. So the GT is growth hormone and testosterone together. And part of that is because it helps keep your androgen receptors from shutting down prematurely. This is finally starting to move the needle a little bit. I made a whole video about it as far as combining growth hormone and testosterone and actually resulting in bigger size in people that were deficient or in patients with micropenis. But as we already talked about in this video, Vigorous Steve, he's a very smart guy. If you guys are into like bodybuilding, particularly, like I'm not into steroids or anything, but I do like learning about it because it's fascinating. Jeez, for the love of Christ, I would hope that I would look better if I was on steroids, but that's neither here nor there. But he's like a very intelligent guy, and if he says something, like I'm gonna believe him because he's very knowledgeable. But he said that actually combining growth hormone with Cialis led to increased like permanent size. Believe it or not, now I'm not saying this is going to work or not, but I am going to say that that does make sense because, guys, like if you look at what effect actually like specifically IGF-1 has on collagen, specifically potentially like collagen production in the actual penile tissue, there is real evidence that it affects that and could affect it in a positive manner. Guys, I'm going to break this down because I perseverate on certain things like the types of collagen. I'm not taking shots at BD or Perv or anybody, but I think it's kind of neglectful to just say collagen in general. I think you need to specifically talk about the types of collagen that are in the penile tissue, which is primarily types 1, 3, and 4 in this paper here. So when we're looking at collagen proliferation or collagen synthesis, we want to see if it's the same types of collagen that's being produced, guys. Here's a paper here that talks about how IGF-1 is a potent stimulator of collagen synthesis and cell proliferation. This can result in a net synthesis or a net production of actual collagen. That could be beneficial when we're talking about the tunica, which is made of collagen, and you are trying to dilate and expand. And then if you are introducing something that adds more collagen to help like build your actual like tunica and help it increase in size, like that could result in real size. So here's another paper here that talks about how IGF-1 can increase collagen, especially type 1 collagen synthesis, especially when it comes to smooth muscle. Guys, you have your tunica, which is made of like a couple of different layers of actual like hard tunica albuginea, hard collagen, but then inside of that on the inner layer in these things called sinusoids of your penis, it's full of actually smooth muscle, which can actually create collagen synthesis, which, guys, if you haven't seen my video on like the stretch mechanism in collagen synthesis, I just made it. You should check it out as well after this. But here's a very important sentence here. Furthermore, the ability of IGF-1 to upregulate collagen synthesis may have implications in various physiological settings, such as development and wound healing, in which rapid upregulation of collagen type 1 expression is critical for growth and repair. And they also showed that IGF-1 increases expression of like basically pro-collagen materials in human aortic smooth muscle cells. Guys, I've said it before and I'm going to talk about it again. I do think that a lot of like the thought leaders or whatever you want to call it, I think they're off as far as what tissue they're trying to compare to. In my opinion, the most similar tissue to penile tissue is actually vascular tissue, like in the aorta. I think we need to be assessing that. And what this is saying here is that the aortic smooth muscle production of collagen, that you can see an increase in that when you use IGF-1. And guys, I thought this was funny. One of the mRNA binding proteins that they evaluated in this study is actually called LARP, like LARPing, like a lot of people think that I'm doing in this mask, like role playing, like I actually have a big pee-pee, or like penile enlargement is actually possible. So that was kind of funny. And if you don't know what LARPing is, it's like live action role play. It's like guys who dress up in like medieval uniforms and like joust against each other and stuff. So whatever, I thought it was funny. And this next paper here also talks about how with IGF-1, you have increased collagen production. Now this is specifically looking at like the settling of like cartilage and like injury recovery, but still you're increasing that collagen production, which could be beneficial. So like in those anti-lysyl oxidase like studies, guys, if you haven't seen my videos, like please just check them out. I don't have time to go through all this, but basically when you inject an agent that's going to help basically break down the collagen bonds, like even just the normal rat or nocturnal erection is going to lead to a 10% increase in size with that lysyl oxidase. Similar to that, I think he was injecting his growth hormone before bed and then using Cialis to help get him like a maximum erection. And between like maximizing his erection, dilating that tunica, and then causing excessive collagen production, like it's not a far-fetched to think that it's actually possible that it could lead to an increase in enlargement. But there's a catch, guys, and I'm going to talk about it. So please don't be trying to go on some Chinese website and ordering growth hormone right now, or IGF-1 peptides for that reason. Just wait till the video is finished, please. Important information is coming. I do a lot of deep dives into this. I feel like I clearly know what the heck I'm talking about. I've made an entire enlargement course with video demonstrations. I break down the science, I break down the literature, I talk about length and girth routines, and it's live now. So if you are interested in learning through me, through one-on-one video coaching, please check it out, guys. The link is in the description. I already mentioned like my aortic aneurysm theories. When your aorta dilates, it's very similar to the process of your tunica dilating in the penis, and there's been several papers that have actually reinforced that, including something that's called megalophallus, an actual medical condition where your penis, basically you have penile gigantism. I was interested, is it possible that IGF-1 can play a role in basically like increasing the aortic diameter or aortic aneurysms? And guys, it does. Here's a case report here that shows that IGF-1 it definitely plays a role in aneurysm formation. Now, this case report, guys, it's like a couple of patients, so it is limited data, but it's still data. Here's another paper here which shows that the association of IGF-1 and its binding proteins with aortic aneurysms in the aortic diameter in older men, guys. They specifically say that IGF-1, it could either be just a marker, potentially a marker of inflammation, which is like a bad sign of health that could increase your risk of like aortic aneurysms, or it could directly contribute to aortic aneurysms. I'm not going to go in deep dives in this literature because they don't have an actual like pathophysiologic reason, like this is what IGF-1 and this is how it leads to aortic aneurysms. It's like, yeah, we think there's an association, guys. So it's a loose association, not cause and effect. And here's another paper here that talks about how you have higher rates of abdominal aortic aneurysms, or AAAs as we call them in the biz, with increased IGF-1 levels. Once again, they say it may in fact contribute to, or it may just be a marker to look out for. There's a big difference to say that like IGF-1 is causing it, or IGF-1 is just present when this happens. So guys, we have to talk about the risks of this stuff because like so many of you guys, I know you want a big PP. Like I get it. Trust me, I get it. Doing PE is dangerous enough on its own, but you need to know about the risks. But IGF-1, guys, it is not a good thing, especially to do it long term, and especially actually if you're an older person. It's associated with higher risks of things like colon and thyroid cancer. It can literally cause like your retina. It's like this little paper thin thing in the area of your eye that's responsible for your vision. You can have swelling there, so it can actually lead to vision impairment. It can impair your glucose metabolism, increase your risk of diabetes. It can lead to muscle pain. It can even decrease your fertility, guys, because we're not going to go through the HPTA like pathway, but basically excessive growth hormone suppresses your body's normal signals that are supposed to help with making things like testosterone and normal testicular function like LH and FSH, guys. It can actually lead to decreased fertility. It can lead to benign prostate hypertrophy, or basically a non-cancerous enlargement of your prostate. And here's a paper here that says, especially in older people, IGF-1 leads to increased rates of death, just in general, death. Not good. It also leads to what we call cytokines, these little chemical signals throughout your body. You can have increased rates of these like inflammatory cytokines throughout your body. So increased inflammation throughout your body, it's not a good thing, guys. And there's even a paper I found here that it says it's associated and it's a critical role in fibrosis in many tissues. Arguably, one could make the argument, that's what arguably means, that it could actually increase your risk of fibrosis. I don't know how much I believe that. This is just one paper, but it's still something to keep in mind. So before you go thinking, oh, I'm just going to inject this, like either into your body or heaven forbid into your pee-pee, like please think, guys, and I would just say, just please don't do it. So what is my like conclusion? Like, Hink, you're on the hot seat. Does it cause enlargement? I don't know. I mean, I've never tried it. I'm on the fence. I'm starting to really come around to the idea of, not necessarily in the way that like BD and Perv talk about it, or maybe it is the same way and I just don't know enough about what they're saying, but I do think there's a role for actual collagen proliferation now, much more than I initially thought. If there is that role of collagen and something that's going to help stimulate collagen production after you've already dilated your tunica, that in theory could help. I mean, so in theory it could help. And one of the guys I trust, you know, almost as much as I trust like Derek More Plates, More Dates, maybe even more, says that it worked for him, then I'm going to keep that at least in the back of my mind. One of the guys that I think is one of, I would even argue probably the smartest guy when it comes to like pharmacologic PE is this guy, and I'll put up his like screen name here. He actually like, somebody made a post on his subreddit about does IGF-1, and he says basically he's injected 3 different variants of IGF-1 on no results whatsoever. This guy's smart, guys. Like, he knows what the heck he's talking about. He's studied. I don't know if he's a true like medical professional or just like a chemical researcher or what, but he knows what the hell he's talking about. And he basically said it did not make a difference for me whatsoever. So to me, that was kind of the nail in the coffin, because I actually trust what this guy says. And if I'm not mistaken, he either is affiliated or actually like sells IGF-1. So he would actually have a financial interest to actually tell you to try it. If you're in the comments, dude, reach out to me. Or I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong in this, if you're even seeing this video. And even, guys, BD, hear this from him, because this is for like speculation, but I believe he tried like, I think growth hormone for like 2 weeks or so, like a very short period of time. But he did not see any significant like changes. Now, that being said, changes are going to occur over time. If you're growing at like 1/10 of an inch per month, which is like tremendously fast, I would argue you should grow about half that on average. Like, that's 1.2 inches. Let's say if using like growth hormone is going to increase it, this is hypothetical, I'm not saying it does this, but if you're going to use growth hormone and it takes it from like a rate of 1 to like a rate of 1.1, like that's still a very minor change. It would take like many months before you would potentially notice a difference. And once again, if you don't have a control to compare to, like, you don't really know if it's working. My bottom line is, like, I think it possibly could work, but this is one of those things, I don't think it's nearly as dangerous as something like anti-lysyl oxidase or like BAPN. However, I do think it has far too many risks to make it worth it, in my opinion. You guys do your own research. If you want to source your own growth hormone and it's worth it to you and you can find the real deal stuff, but the growth hormone, as far as I know, is like unbelievably expensive. Like, that Liver King guy was spending like $30,000 a month. I mean, something obscenely expensive on growth hormone alone. And you want to try it, or you want to try to get like IGF-1 peptides. Once again, we'll go on the record, say never inject anything into your actual like PP. But if you want to try it, whatever, guys, it's your body. I wouldn't recommend it. But I really appreciate you guys watching. I'm learning a lot. I hope you guys learned something. If you don't mind, take a second to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Remember, there's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just as you are. All right, guys, peace and love.